support the work of interfaith leaders who say religious communities must stop blessing war and violence. Our activities promote critical examination of the cost of violence and war at home and in the world from a faith perspective. We insist on respecting human rights, thus today's event, international law, and the use of peaceful means in the resolution of war.
I want to thank the faith community for its work on this issue. You all have been tremendous, and I can tell you from firsthand experience sitting in meetings with senators, with member staff, with senior officials in the Obama administration, your voice has made a significant difference, and it continues to do so, and I urge you to keep speaking out.
So we are here today to continue this sustained effort. This vote, I think, is a validation that determined, strategic, sustained commitment can and does make the difference. President Obama, we want any of the roadblocks, the CIA roadblocks, whatever roadblocks there may be, to be removed so that in addition to this extraordinary report, the Senate Intelligence Committee will be a public record of what this country has done in our name so that we can move to the next steps to make sure that we as a nation never
Trans part of the Islamophobia that has developed in this country and has gone beyond Guantanamo and all these other sites to start haunting the American Muslim citizen and detract of their civil rights. And it is safe to say that the civil rights of the American Muslim today are not equal to those of the other Americans. According to their Bradbury memos, the longest consecutive period a detainee was deprived of sleep was 180 hours. Now, the report points out that when they finally got to some of these detainees who were released and talked to them, generally they were surprised that the detainees were not angry. They didn't want revenge. What they wanted was an apology and this sort of thing. In the end, this is not going to carry us very far because we, as American people, have a moral responsibility. The information has gotten out. We now know what has been done in our name. We know that whether we are religious or not, there is a moral responsibility not to treat any human being this way. The question becomes, what are we doing about it?
We must make the case that these three wars are intricately connected. Those wars are the war on drugs, the war on terror, and the war on immigrants. I'll be making a bridge back to torture here, so bear with me. These three wars have several things in common, but a few of the most obvious ones are that one, they all target people of color. Two, they are an effective means of control by controlling people of color through incarceration and by controlling everyone else to approve this system via fear. And three, they make a lot of money for corporations. I want the world community, and particularly our nation, to more fully recognize and acknowledge that prolonged solitary confinement is another form of torture, and perhaps the most widespread and active form of torture, especially in this nation. With the private incarceration industry expanding to accommodate the three wars, the use of this form of torture is also expanding. It's imperative that religious voices of conscience lead the campaign to abolish prolonged solitary. How do we get people to care about an issue that is literally out of sight and out of mind? The warehousing of the forgotten masses, our citizen underclass, and more recently, the new immigrant internment at our 200+ immigrant detention centers across the country.
No wonder people are outraged at the United States of America. No wonder people have reacted to our country for what it has done, and that it has been done without people being held accountable. Judaism teaches that everyone, even the prisoner, is created B'Tselem Elohim, in the image of God, and is entitled to be treated with dignity and respect. If that seems to be a mantra today, each faith and every faith, it's because it is a universal principle, worthy of everyone's respect and adoption. You shall not oppress a stranger, for you know the heart of the stranger, having yourselves been strangers in the land of Egypt. A deep and abiding teaching, Judaism. We are to honor others regardless of whether they demonstrate self-respect. Our obligation is to treat others with dignity is not conditional on what sort of person stands before us. If and to the extent that half the men in Guantanamo are innocent, so true for those we would deem guilty, we cannot perpetuate torture and cruel, inhumane, and degrading treatment as it is. For the sake of our children, for the sake of our grandchildren, for the sake of retaining any resemblance of a constitutional democracy, this country must rise up.
That's right.
It must condemn the torture we already know was committed in our names. It must still demand the accountability of George Bush and Dick Cheney and Donald Rumsfeld and Condoleezza Rice